Many of us who enjoy sporting and hunting pastimes will know the value of a good hunting story. And you will have no doubt have relished in the tall tales even of hunts and the stories of others. This would even have been more so in medieval times, where hunting and hawking were very much rich pastimes. The two principal characters that we focus on today are to do with the hunting story here in the Pentland Hills. Those two characters were not only colleagues but great friends, trusted friends. They are none other than King Robert the Bruce and Sir William St Clair of Roslin. This story refers to an elusive white faunch deer. Now, white faunch deer are not that common, and the term faunch probably specifically refers to a white fallow deer, which, although not common, they are a pale brown colour and they can whiten with age. Anyway, this deer was elusive, and when you have such an elusive creature on a hunt with this, it brings a little bit of tale and legend with it, and this is the deer that Bruce and St Clair were on the hunt for. Fallow deer are usually medium to large size. They can average around 96 kilograms, so when you think about the average man weighing around 79 kilograms, that is some size of deer. And they have a lifespan of about 16 years. So a fallow deer may well have been the white faunch deer that was referred to in this royal hunt. They have palmate antlers, which usually expand after 4 or 5 years old. Hoof prints around 6 centimetres long. And I can just imagine that when Bruce came here, they probably feasted the night before the hunt. They probably spoke about legendary chases, but so far this elusive deer had escaped one and all. And Bruce, being a determined hunter as he was, and a man who liked to wager, I might add, would look forward to that hunt the very next day here in one of his royal forests. What a lovely autumn day opening up here in the Pentland Hills. I certainly hope that Bruce and St Clair had such a day when they were out hunting. Now, in ancient Scottish mythology and folklore, white deer were mystical creatures. And if you saw one, it meant something significant. They were messengers from another world. And they also brought luck. They were first brought here by the Romans, but then they became extinct. But later they were introduced in the 11th century, and since that time they thrived. Now what you can see beyond you, above the farm, is what is known as the King's Hill. And that is very significant to the hunt, as we shall see. As a young boy, I was raised with hunting dogs, lurchers and coursing whippets. So I know only too well the emotions and the feelings that a hunt can generate, especially for the dogs. And it would have been no different in these hunts with Robert the Bruce. This is an extremely steep hill to get up, but the view is absolutely splendid. So I'm finally up here on the summit of King's Hill, the King's Hill. Absolutely beautiful. If you're acquainted at all with the Pentland Hills, you'll know how majestic they really are, because the views and the panoramas up here, the vista is absolutely spectacular. Now it's difficult holding a steady hand up here, but if you imagine all the beaters are working out that way, the King, Robert the Bruce, the St Clairs and all their helpers are gathered here on this hill, and the deer is being driven through the back hills. I've just come off the summit to escape the wind, so hopefully you were all able to hear that well. But the King and all the hunt are gathered here, and the deer has been beaten off the back hills by the hounds. Now, William St Clair, I am sure, in a token of jest, has wagered his head that his hounds would be able to catch the deer. And Robert the Bruce has taken him at his word, I'm sure in jest also. Now, there is one significant part to this story that you will have to eliminate in your eye. This reservoir here is man-made. That was not there. There was a stream or a burn that ran down here. Now, William St Clair has two dogs named Help and Hold. I love those names. What they do is they manage to beat the deer and drive it this way past the King on his horse, St Clair on his horse, in their full hunting retinue. So the deer is driven probably down this hill. Now the bet was that St Clair's hounds would get to the deer before it crossed the water. I forget which hound, I think it was Help, who managed to get down there, and the deer stopped in the water, and Help held the deer there while it was there until Hound came on the scene. Now St Clair is racing downhill after his dogs, probably this way because that's too steep. Take my word for it, that's quite a steep bit to go down on a horse. And Hold, the other lurcher, has managed to chase and manoeuvre the deer back to this side of the water, where William St Clair catches up with it and slays the deer. Thus, wins the wager against Robert Bruce and keeps his head. Now, hunting stories have a tendency to become greater than they actually were, and they become mythical tales, but that's what makes them so intriguing. But I've no doubt that there's some truth, or a good deal of truth, and that this hunt took place. St Clair was with Robert Bruce. They did have a wager. Bruce would wager all the time. He loved to wager with his hawks, and he loved to wager with his dogs. And this, I see no reason why it would have been any different at all. But St Clair, oh, he must have praised his dogs. And I've got no doubt that they would have spoke about that at the feast at St Clair's residence that very night. If you ever get the opportunity to come up here, it's well worth the visit. I mean, the Pentland Hills on their own, with their many summits, valleys and walks, are well worth the effort. But to come through the farm is private property, so permission must be sought there, and it's very explicit that it is private property. I did ask permission to come up on here, and the farmer obliged me. There is a plaque, a small information plaque at the farm gate, which tells you a little about Robert the Bruce's presence here during the hunt. But it's a great story. Once William St Clair had dispatched the deer, Robert the Bruce went down there and embraced them in congratulations. And he also, just through the sheer enjoyment and sport of the hunt, awarded St Clair some lands. St Clair, later, as a remembrance, would build a chapel to St Catherine of the Hopes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, the remains of that chapel lies buried under the water. In exceptionally dry seasons, you may see the foundations of that chapel when the water level sinks. This is quite a steep hill to descend, so I've no doubt that Robert the Bruce himself and the rest of his retinue would have rode down this way. It seems the oldest and most natural path. Met up with St Clair at the base of the King's Hill here. Beyond this is known as the Knight's Field, of course, dedicated to Sir William St Clair. What a hunting day that would have been. The elusive, white, and in their minds at that medieval age, mystical deer that had carried significant meaning and great luck with it. I absolutely love being up here. In later years, of course, after the death of Robert the Bruce, William St Clair and his brother would be part of the party led by James Douglas in escorting Robert the Bruce's heart to the Holy Land. They would make a detour on that journey, and they would meet their end in Teba, Spain. It was the St Clairs, one of them or both of them, who got in trouble during that fight in Spain, and Douglas came to their aid and died in the process. But I think they had a rich life, as a medieval knight goes. The life of a medieval knight. A rulership and a friendship under Robert Bruce brought not only great material rewards, but on a personal level. Bruce was very much a changed man in later kingship. You become a king with kingship, and I'm sure much of those bonds of friendship that they had were forged through pastimes like hawking and hunting. It's an excellent story here in the Pentland Hills in Midlothian, just on the outskirts of Edinburgh. But it's a story that's not all that common in the Bruce history. And it's a story that I'm glad to have told. If you've liked this film, thank you always for watching. Please comment, share, and above all, subscribe. I'll see you next time. And so goes the story of the elusive white mystical deer. I've no doubt that they treated the animal with honour, much in the way that Native American Indians have done. They will always honour an animal after a hunt. And if you do see that white mystical deer, usually something significantly good is going to happen.